A storybook is a series of pages. A digital storybook is a series of pages on the screen of the computer. In Snap, you can have sprites on the screen like this, but you can also have the stage where you can have backgrounds. In this case, we're going to import some backgrounds, and we can do that just by dragging them on to the screen, like this. At this point, just by going from one background to the next, we'll be able to go through the pages of the storybook. We're not going to need the sprite for this project, so we'll just delete that. Now we're ready to make a script to go from one page to the next. We'll do that by switching the costume. The command switch to costume scene 0 or scene 1 or 2 will take us to whichever scene we select. So now we have a way of going from one scene to the next. We could simply make a whole series of these. So we would say go to scene 1 and then scene 2 and so on, scene 3. But with a computer there's a simpler way, and that way involves creation of a variable. We're going to make a variable that's called the scene number, and we can use this variable. We'll set the scene number to 0 to start out, and then we can use this to go from one scene to the next by using the join command to join the word scene and then the variable number. So if we say switch scene we say switch to scene 0, it takes us there. So saying scene followed by scene number will take us to whichever scene is indicated by the variable. So if I enter 3 here, it will take us to scene 3. This allows us to make a loop, and the loop is found under the control structure. In this case, it's just going to be a repeat statement, and we can set the scene to 0 to begin with, and we have about 6 scenes altogether. In order to go from one scene to the next, we'll have to change the scene number by 1 each time, so that we go from scene 0 to 1 to 3, 2 to 3, and so on. In order to be able to observe the change, we probably want to wait a moment between each page. So now let's try this and see how it works. There's scene 1, scene 2, scene 3, and so on. So at this point, we probably would like to not any longer see the scene number, and so in order to not see it, we can uncheck it. Checking it on will let us debug this scene the scene variable if we have any problems. But if we're satisfied that it's doing what we want, we can display it, take it off the display so that we just see the page of the book. So having gotten this far, we may want to give the user a little bit more control and allow them to control when the page turns. We can do that by waiting until they press the space bar. So we'll use the wait until command and then have it wait until the space bar is pressed. And we're going to maybe have a small delay. Sometimes someone inadvertently hits the space bar twice and goes forward 2 pages when they only meant to go forward 1. If we include a small delay, that will avoid that. So let's give this a try. So here we are on the first page. Press the space bar, and it takes us all the way through these various pages. If we'd like to have it wrap around when we get to the end and go back to the beginning, we can put the whole thing into a forever loop so that when it reaches the end, we reset it back to 0 and pick up again. Let's give this a try. So we're at the cover, scene, the first scene, second scene, third, fourth, fifth, and now we're back to the beginning, just as we wanted. We can also add a little bit more control by putting the green flag command at the very beginning. That way, whenever we click the green flag up in the corner, it will start everything going like this. Although I seem to have a bug. Let me try this one more time. 1, 2, 3. There. Okay. So at this point, we might want to add some enhancements, and one of the more common enhancements that you might add would be to create a narration to go along with the text. We can record a sound just by recording. So I'm going to record the very first scene, the cover. The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame. Press the space bar to go to the next page. The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame. Press the space bar to go to the next page. Okay, and I'm just going to call that sound 0 because it's on page 0. And now let's, in fact, go to the next page and record something for that. The mole had been working very hard, spring cleaning his home. The mole had been working very hard, spring cleaning his home. Okay, we'll call that sound number 2 or number 1. And now let's go to another page. Scene 2. It was a small wonder then that he suddenly flung down his brush on the floor, said bother, and also hang spring cleaning, and bolted out of the house without even putting on his coat. It was a small wonder then that he suddenly flung down his brush on the floor, said bother, and also hang spring cleaning, and bolted out of the house without even putting on his coat. Okay, and then this will be sound number 2. We can use the play command under the sound section to play any of these sounds. The mole had been working very hard, spring cleaning his home. In order to incorporate this into the script, we'll essentially want to duplicate the process that we used to change from scene 1 to 2 to 3. We'll make another variable. Sorry, this is not a variable. This is a variable. And the variable will be called sound number, just as scenes are called scene numbers. And we also want to replicate this join command, but we'll say sound instead of scene. And now what that should do is allow us to set the duplicate. Well, I didn't want to duplicate this whole thing, just wanted this one. Set this sound number to 0 and then play that sound. The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame. Press the space bar to go to the next page. So now let's just initialize this, start it out at 0, and then add the play sound command and see if we have a talking book.
The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Graham. Press the space bar to go to the next page.
Now I think we don't need to see the variable displayed any longer, so I'm going to take that off. Then I'm going to press the space bar and go to the next page.
The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Graham. Press the space bar to go to the next page.
I have a bug in my procedure, and the bug is that I did not advance the sound number in the same way that I did the scene number. But that's easily corrected. I'll just add this in. Now let's start all over from the beginning and see if it works more accurately.
The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Graham. Press the space bar to go to the next page.
I'll press the space bar.
The mole had been working very hard, spring cleaning his home.
And I'll press the space bar again to go to the next page.
It was a small wonder then that he suddenly flung down his brush on the floor, said bother, and also hang spring cleaning, and bolted out of the house without even putting on his coat.
So there you have it. I have a digital storybook, and I can add an auditory narrative to the storybook, so it's now a talking storybook. The next enhancement would be to actually animate the characters so that the mole would move up to the tunnel until he pops out in the meadow. That, however, will be a screencast for another time. Enjoy digital stories.